HP Pavilion Gaming 15 is the entry-level gaming laptop that lacks the common details typically defining gaming notebooks. While competing brands such as Acer, Lenovo, and MSI are putting RGB backlit keyboards, glowing light bars, and dedicated gaming keys in their products, this Pavilion laptop lacks all of that. But it comes with nice design elements, a pretty solid build, and a lower price tag. Is it enough in this competitive space of sub-$1,200 price range? Let's find out. Build quality is on par with the expectations considering the price, and the fact that this is a budget laptop that sits below HP's Omen series. It's using an all-plastics construction which does collect some fingerprints like most laptops do, but it is fairly easy to wipe it off. The keyboard is a pleasant experience, actually very good, considering this is a budget gaming laptop that has to make some compromises in order to fit within a certain price category. HP has not skipped out on the keyboard quality. The keys feel very tactile and the keystrokes give a soft response during typing. Something to be aware of is that the function keys, as well as the up and down arrow keys, are smaller than other keys. The function keys are about half of the size of a normal key. And the up and down keys are also 50% size compared to the other keys. This could be a bit annoying if you are using these keys a lot. In my case, this was the up and down keys. There are two color options for this laptop. One has the green backlit keyboard with green accent around the HP logo on the lid. The other one has the standard white backlit keyboard with 2 levels of dimming. The trackpad uses Elon drivers. They work as they are supposed to. However, the clicks feel a bit plasticky and loose and don't give me that solid feeling when pressed down. The width of the trackpad is roughly the size of the spacebar. Speakers, I'd say they are a highlight of this laptop due to the unique design. It looks like a series of polygons that run across the entire upper part of the keyboard. But it doesn't actually sit flush to the surface. There is a little bit of indent to the speaker grills. I haven't seen this type of design on other gaming laptops, and so far I have to say I am a fan of this design. The audio is tuned by the Danish company Bang & Olufsen, mostly known for their high-end, very expensive TVs and audio products. The quality is pretty good, however the sound direction feels a bit one-dimensional, and it's also not the loudest laptop speakers out there. So a pair of headphones is still recommended for multimedia and especially gaming sessions. Let's talk about hardware. There are 2 CPU platforms on the Pavilion Gaming 15. You can get it with either an Intel or AMD-based system. If you want an Intel CPU, currently HP is shipping the latest 10th generation quad-core i5-10300H or the 6-core i7-10750H options. If you opt for AMD, HP is offering this system with AMD's 4000 series Renoir mobile CPU, and depending on the retailer and region, you should be able to find it paired with the 6-core R5-4600H or the 8-core R7-4800H. On the graphics side, there are a slew of options ranging from a GTX 1050 all the way up to an RTX 2060 with Max-Q design. Storage will vary depending on configuration, but there are options to mix SSD and mechanical SATA drives inside this laptop. As for RAM, the Pavilion Gaming 15 supports up to 32 GB of RAM. There are 2 physical RAM slots, so you have the option to run this system with dual-channel memories if you wish. The RAM speed will vary, depending on if your CPU is running on an Intel platform or the AMD platform. The Intel CPU uses DDR4, 2933 MHz RAM, and the AMD system uses the 3200 MHz DDR4 speed. Not a huge difference, but historically Ryzen processors have been more sensitive to faster RAM speed than the Core counterparts. As for the display, there are actually 3 different options that HP is shipping to customers. All 3 panels are 15.6-inch IPS level, anti-glare displays. With what HP is calling micro-edge, it basically means that it has slim panel bezels. The difference lies in the screen specs. The first option has a 1920 by 1080p resolution with 60 Hz panel refresh rate, 62% sRGB, and 39% of Adobe RGB color gamut. Brightness is rated at 250 nits, which isn't very bright. The second option has the same full HD resolution with 144 Hz panel refresh rate, and better colors as well as being slightly brighter at 300 nits. And there is also surprisingly a 4K panel option, supporting 3840 by 2160 resolution. Outdoor visibility is not great, at least with the 60 Hz panel that I tested. You are able to see the screen in shadow, but using it under brightly lit areas or direct sunlight will compromise visibility a lot. There is also a 720p HD webcam sitting in the middle. The quality of the webcam is quite bad compared to most smartphones. I almost never use a webcam, but it feels good to know it's at least available for the occasional Zoom call. For wireless, the Pavilion Gaming 15 supports Wi-Fi 6 and Bluetooth 5. Moving on to ports. On the right side, a full-sized HDMI 2.0 port, a USB Type-A port, Ethernet, a USB Type-C port supporting DisplayPort, so you can hook up your laptop to an external 4K monitor. On the left side, it looks very clean. Just a single USB Type-A port and the power port. My particular configuration of the Pavilion Gaming 15 came with an AMD R5-4600H CPU, Nvidia GTX 1650 graphics card, and 4GB x 2 for dual-channel memory coming in at 3200 MHz speed. It has the 60 Hz base panel. First up is CPU test. For this I used Cinebencher 15, and this scored 178 points in single-core and 1418 points for multi-core, as well as an OpenGL score of 94 frames per second. These are very good scores, and you can see how it stacks up against some other similar spec systems I have tested. In Cinebencher 20, the single-core result was 455 points and 3,447 points for multi-core. Again, very good numbers. Moving on to gaming tests, I tested all games at 1080p resolution at ultra settings, with VSync disabled. Assassin's Creed Odyssey is a very demanding title, and as you can see this game stutters quite a lot at ultra settings. The game's built-in benchmark only managed 29 frames per second on average. You should lower the graphics settings if you plan to play this game with a GTX 1650 level graphics card. Batman Arkham Knight is an older title, and the performance was a little better at 47 frames per second, still not a solid 60 frames per second unless you lower the graphics quality, but at least more playable than Assassin's Creed in ultra settings. You can see how GPU is being fully utilized by this game, but CPU is not maxed out. The next game I tested was Deus Ex: Mankind Divided. This was another title that pushed the graphics card quite hard, and the 1650 only managed to pull 38 frames per second in average. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to record the CPU temperatures, but the GPU stayed relatively cool around 70 degrees Celsius. Far Cry 5 averaged 55 frames per second with the game's built-in benchmark. Again, this is with ultra settings, so if you lower the settings you will gain more FPS. The graphics card is pulling most of the heavy lifting here, and the CPU wasn't being fully utilized. GPU temperature stayed in check, never exceeding 70 degrees Celsius. F1 2018 was the only game I tested that could hit above 60 frames per second with this laptop, and the average results came in at 65 frames per second. This game also uses the CPU far more than other games for computation. Shadow of the Tomb Raider scored 44 frames per second with the game's built-in benchmark, and it is an expected result for this type of hardware. As you can see, this game is very heavy on the hardware, which is why many reviewers test this game. The graphics card is being utilized to max almost all the time. This happens not only to the 1650, but also the higher tier cards from Nvidia. Lastly, I also tested a strategy game. Total War: Three Kingdoms hit an average of 28 frames per second with the built-in benchmark map. Given that this is a real-time strategy game and not a first-person shooter, I think it can actually be enjoyable to play this game at 1080p with ultra settings. All these games do not require an internet connection. So I also played some online battle royale matches in Fortnite with epic settings turned on. The Pavilion Gaming 15 came very close to hit 60 frames per second. It wasn't running a solid 60 frames per second all the time, sometimes it could dip below that, but it's close enough to make it a decent gaming experience. And if you want higher performance, you can always drop the quality to high or medium. Thermals. The unit I tested only has a GTX 1650 graphics card, paired with a power-efficient AMD processor, so it does not run excessively hot. The hot spots of this laptop are mostly close to the panel like most laptops. But again, with a 1650, thermals will not be a big issue, and this means the fans don't have to work that hard either. Fan levels stayed around 34 decibels, which is not bad for a gaming laptop. You can actually still hear the in-game audio over the fan noise. HP ships a 52.5 watt-hour battery with this laptop. It is not the biggest battery out there. And the reason is they had to make some sacrifices in order to fit a 2.5-inch mechanical drive bay inside the Pavilion Gaming 15. Personally, I would have liked if HP removed the mechanical hard drive completely to fit a bigger battery inside. On the positive note, if you choose the more power-efficient Ryzen processor, the battery life is actually quite good. In my test of streaming a 1080p YouTube video with good Wi-Fi connection, the Pavilion Gaming 15 lasted 5 hours and 50 minutes with screen brightness at 50% level. Playing Fortnite Battle Royale with 50% screen brightness lasted 90 minutes. Conclusion. I like that HP has actually put in some care into designing the Pavilion Gaming 15. This is not always the case with budget laptops, as some of them are made by OEM manufacturers that just put together all the components into a boxy laptop design and slab on the brand logo. In HP's case, I can see they actually made an effort in designing the smaller power brick, the nice and clean-looking speaker grills, as well as having the audio tuned by Bang & Olufsen. A big bonus point also goes to the built-in SD card reader, a feature that is lacking on other brands, even the more expensive gaming laptops that cost much more than the Pavilion. The 150-watt charge brick that powers the R5 CPU and 1650 graphics configuration of this laptop is very slim and lightweight compared to other gaming laptops, coming in at approximately 300 grams. Cons for this laptop. The biggest one I think is the display. It looks a bit washed out and not as vibrant. Other brands such as Lenovo are offering better displays at the same budget entry price points. This is not a good display if you required good color accuracy for things like Photoshop or other content creating purposes. For gaming, I'd say it is okay. Some people might actually even prefer the more muted look of the panel, but having reviewed other laptops with much more vibrant colors, I have to say the display in the Pavilion Gaming 15 pales in comparison to those machines. And you can't really use it outdoors in bright sunlight either. The shipped SSD drive, which was an Intel drive in my case, felt a bit slow in comparison to other laptops I have tested in this category. To summarize, I think this laptop is a good choice for students or people looking for a budget PC that could also run the latest AAA games. Just make sure to at least get the 144Hz panel if you play esports games like Fortnite, Apex Legends, or Valorant. I'd also recommend getting the AMD version of this laptop, as it makes more sense from a value point of view. Comment below if you have any question about this laptop. Also take a moment to hit that like button if this video helped you in any way. Subscribe to the channel and turn on the bell notifications to stay updated with more laptop reviews. See you again in the next Gen X Reviews video.